Welcome to Ice Bike. This is the in-house show of one of the UK's biggest distributors called Madison. They represent Shimano, but we're here at the Pro stand. They've got some new stuff. Now, I quite like Pro saddles. They've sometimes been a bit of a messy design, but they've just launched their version of the 3D printed thing. Like every brand is doing this now. But the problem I've always had with these is when you sit on them, they kind of catch your skin and they wear away your shorts. So what they've done now is they've developed this sort of outer sheath. So you still got that normal saddle outer that we're familiar with, and the rest of it is all 3D printed so they can customize padding like you would expect. This bit at the back, no one really sits there unless you're doing something really wrong getting back in the saddle. But this looks great. They have the stainless steel rails, carbon rails, and an 142 and 152 millimeter widths now, so some good stuff. They've also tidied up the rest of their range. I love it when it's organized like this. So you've got your traditional T-shaped saddles and then our pear-shaped saddles, and there's now a clear distinction between carbon rails, less padding, and then you have the curved section as well. So this would be a shape that locks you into the saddle a bit more as opposed to requires your core stability to lock you in. And as you go through, you've got different saddle rails, different price points, and now they've just introduced, like they call it off-road. In reality, I think this is a more practical saddle for all-road and general purpose riding. It means it's been rated for more impact like mountain biking, but also they close off the gap in the middle, so if you're riding in winter you're not going to get water spray onto your shorts, but also they add a little bit more cushioning, so if you're into a slightly more upright position, this could be a nice little addition to your winter or all-road bike as much as it is for off-road. And I just like the tidied up aesthetics. Good work, Pro. Also, a quick mention to the new women's saddles as well. Just tidied up the aesthetics loads. I think it really makes a difference, but they now do these in a 152 and a 162, so significantly wider. And I do like the shape. Somewhere like the Specialized Mimic, but keeping things nice and light. Here at the Shimano stand, recognize this guy, he's absolutely everywhere. And this is the same old Dura Ace. Nothing new to report. Right, this is my first look at the new Factor 1. When you actually see it in the flesh, it looks way shorter than you imagine. Obviously, they've tucked in those chainstays, which you can get your head around, but just seeing where this bolt is. So these are two standard bearings here, one big bolt all the way through here. So this angle here is effectively your normal head angle, and how they've worked the trail measurement out. It's actually quite intelligent, and how you would then try and work out what stem length you would want for both fit and for handling characteristics is dependent on where that pivot point is and actually where the effective handlebar would be. I've been struggling to get my head around some of the geometry, but I think they're going to see more designs like this. Where the brake hose runs is actually through this little section here and down through here. Initially I thought it was going to come through here, so interesting packaging. Still got paint all over the bottom bracket though. Here at the DT Swiss stand with the luxury of a cutaway hub, so I can explain more about that video I made a few weeks ago when we were talking about how you drift your bearings in for a light landing. With this cutaway you can see what's happening. So on the drive side, when you thread your bearing in, you can see the actual bearing is in contact with both this shoulder of the axle and the actual hub itself. Whereas on the non-drive side, you can see that the inner race is in contact with the axle, but the outer race has a gap between the edge of the shell and the bearing. Now that is there to take up the tolerance differences between different bearings, so the mechanic can land their bearing accurately. If you push too hard with your drift, you close that gap and you can feel the notchy bearings. Now some of you are saying, what about the end caps? These end caps will push them home. The end caps push on the inner race, so you're totally right that you will get a discrepancy in the manufacturing, or you'll get a discrepancy in your assembly sorted out with the inner race, so long as you haven't pushed the outer race too far in. On the free hub, you can see a different situation. You've got the inner preload ring, but both bearings are seated up against the preload ring and seated up against the edge of the free hub body. Hope that makes more sense. I'm a happy boy. I've come to the Profile Design stand and I feel like I've hit gold because their new stems are on the token cable box system. So this will work with the token A box and C box system, which means that you get access to that fantastic token titanium bearing in the 51.8 millimeters, and it all integrates. This is the first sort of stem that I have seen that you can just buy aftermarket to work with any handlebar that is going to work with that system outside of things like black ink and token themselves, which are impossible to get hold of. Profile Design are pretty much everywhere, distributed by Madison. This is going to solve so many problems for those of you out there trying to custom build bikes right now. We need to learn more about this stem. Good work. Hold fire, we've got more to talk about here. For all of you time trialists who like that high praying mantis position, quite challenging to get sometimes. So on this bar, they now have 30 degrees, which should be enough to get most of you in position. You can also switch these brackets around to get a slightly further forward position. Brilliant. But if you're still riding stuff like this, they now do a tilt booster. So you can take your standard 15 degrees tilt and add another 15 degrees. That's going to solve quite a lot of problems.
So we've had 27 tyres, we've had 26, we've had 29, now we're on 32. These have now made it into production. We're seeing Vittoria and Maxxis making 32-inch tyres. So what do you think? Right, 32-inch from Maxxis. We've got the Aspen. So we're now in full production. We've got an Aspen 32-inch tyre. It's massive.
Welcome to the Coros stand. These guys have been making some GPS units with like amazing battery life because they use this huge solar panel at the top here. They're quoting here 120 hours of ride time, which means that for every 2 hours that this little solar panel is in the sunshine, you get an additional hour of ride time. Fantastic for like ultra distant things like Paris-Brest-Paris. It's those sort of rides where these things are becoming really, really popular. And now I've seen one in the flesh for the first time. They're actually very sleek, very lightweight, and actually the dials are really easy to use. I can imagine trying to actually control this while you've got gloves on, actually riding that speed as well. Interested to learn more about these, but it doesn't stop there. They also do a whole range of watches. Now, back in my ultra running days, it was a massive problem trying to get battery life long enough to sustain like something like the UTMB. And now even like the bottom of the range watches, got breadcrumb navigation at 41 hours, full map navigation at 41 hours, and they're so light. It's incredible. And then you have the full range of mountain watches. These are now quoting 65 hours worth of use. I mean, that is a big, almost 3-day run out of one single charge. Incredible. What I do like, they've also got a couple of accessories. The speed sensor, great for improving accuracy for people worried about time trial times, that sort of thing. But they are really small and lightweight. This will just go around the hub of your bike wheel to improve the accuracy on the speed, and very neat little heart rate sensors for your arm as well. Everything's just really been designed for the athlete, I think. Lightweight, easy to use with gloves on. I want to hear more from this brand. How about you? This is MissGrape. Now, I first heard about MissGrape because it is the brand that 3T have chosen to use as part of their internal frame storage. When I first saw it, really good quality, and now Madison are bringing in the entire MissGrape range in. This stuff is bomb-proof. Some of the hardest wearing bike packing kit that I've seen. What really caught my eye was though, is that they are welding this waterproof layer around the entire inside of the sack. This is the inside. Normally you would find just the seams have been welded or taped over. This is an entire waterproof sack. Now you can see here where it's been delaminating. This is because at the show they've been taking it in and out the entire time, which you would never normally do. But I've just been trying to get this to a braid, and it all looks incredibly durable. And then this fabric on the outside, the rep has just given me this sample and very proudly just cut into it. You know, God knows how you would cut that, but then challenged me to try and rip it any further. And I'm failing miserably at trying to make that any worse. Cool, very interested. Nice work, MissGrape. You order this guy. This is Truman from Part Tool. Thanks for being on the channel.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Man, you're going solo. The big man's moving on.
Yeah, he's moving on. He's got 2 more weeks. At the end of February 2026, he's going to be gone.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
It's a new flavour to the Part Tool channel.
I'm kind of pumped. I'm sad to see my buddy go, but he's got to go and get faster on his bike.
He looked like a happy man in that video.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, but yeah, I'm excited for him.
Yeah,
and
we all are.
We're going to find out how it is at Park Tool without him, because it's been 30 years with him.
More about you. You might have been following the channel. In fact, I know you've been following the channel because you're like, oh my God, here's Paul coming. So you've seen our discussion around Greece. People are really interested.
Oh my goodness.
Really interested. And Park Tool are one of the few companies that actually publish your safety data sheets.
Yeah.
Well done. Thanks.
We do. We put them out there for people, and it's important for people to know what is in that grease. Our safety data sheet doesn't go super deep into it. There's always the next level.
It's a safety. You don't publish the technical data sheet, but that's what we're still going to see if we can get some technical details from you a little bit.
I can do my best.
I want to start with PPL1.
Yep.
It's not a grease that I put on my recommendation list because it's a polyurethane grease, which is different to the lithium and the calcium that we're used to seeing. So in theory, you should wash out your bearings before using this, but
Yeah, this doesn't jive well with like a lithium grease. Like if you were to mix this and lithium, they're not fans of each other.
Yep. So if you wash out your bearings and then put this in, you get the benefits of, well, it's synthetic, isn't it?
Yep.
And it works pretty well.
Yep.
But as long as you clean things out. So.
Yep. High shear, so it's going to take, it basically is going to take more effort to shear it, but it's going to repel water really well. And it's going to be a great all-around grease.
Yeah, if you have one grease in your bike shop and you're prepared to wash out the old stuff, this is a good shout. Yeah, absolutely.
Great stuff.
And then you've got your anti-seize compound. I'm a little bit confused as to what's in here. Can you help us out?
I can help you out a little bit. I can. So in here is like talcum and aluminum and some calcium, and so basically we're using some hard materials in here to be under high pressure and create separation. Those are the two goals. You want to have it's for high torque applications and to create separation. Those are your two goals with this.
Okay, so we're talking bottom bracket, like SRAM crank bolts, the big threads on a high torque, 30, 40 Newton meters plus.
Exactly. Small bolts, you don't need this.
And there's a mixture of synthetic and metallic compounds in there.
Exactly.
Interesting. And then HPG1, we don't talk about very often.
Yeah.
This is actually
this is probably the best value that you're going to get out of our range. This is probably an underrated grease. We call it high performance, so we say high performance, but
what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. This is a calcium grease.
It's calcium complex.
Complex grease.
That's important to note. The complex means that it's been mixed with something else, a Park Tool secret sauce.
Yep, we got the secret sauce going on. But yeah, it's a great grease, very versatile, low shear, really good with water. Also does jive with other stuff a little bit better, but I would still just try and wash stuff out and use just this.
Yeah, it's a good replacement for like Shimano premium grease, Motor X 2000, that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
Swap it straight out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you could use this as a general grease all around. It's just in most bike shops for all around application, this is going to be kind of your go-to. If you want to put this in your bearings and have a little bit lower rolling resistance, this is going to do a better job of that.
And this is your more waterproof, but with some
like
caveats.
You could put that in your seat post, and in certain applications, so aluminum bike, aluminum post, you can put that in there, it'll be fine.
Nice. Thanks.
I wouldn't do this. Just because this is gonna have more of a tendency to slip for the seat post, and that's gonna have a little bit more of a tendency to hold on to it.
Yeah, this is sheer, this is sticky, it's tacky, it will stay in place even when some water's around. Good stuff. Thanks for clearing that up for us and putting some clarity. Now, last time I was here, we spoke to Calvin about the spokes.
Yeah.
And we were both tearing our hair out about the carbon spokes. A year later, carbon spokes are everywhere. You've just been giving a talk about spokes and talking more about the tension and the torque, etc. Can you just give us some insight? What are Park Tool doing as a company to help the whole industry transition into this new era? What are you working on?
So it's harder than steel was for us, and aluminum. Steel and aluminum, we're basing it off of modulus of elasticity. So we tested hundreds of spokes. We created charts. We created basically a algorithm so that no matter if our chart doesn't have it and you go onto our wheel tension app, you can go 1/10 of a millimeter or 1/2 of a tenth of a millimeter or 100th of a millimeter, and you can get a specific chart for that exact size that you need.
Yep.
And basically we filled in all these gaps in the chart, the physical chart online, with an algorithm.
It was brilliant. You could find anything you wanted in there.
Based on the modulus of elasticity. And then we did the same thing with aluminum. So the dimension, as long as it's consistent, same thing with aluminum. Not going to be the same with carbon fiber. It's going to be different brand to brand, model to model in the carbon fiber spokes. And we're even seeing some issues from model to in the same model.
Oh yeah, we've had people in our comment section saying they've brought the same elite wheel as I had, and their spare spokes came with a different set of spokes than the ones that I reviewed. What are you supposed to do?
There's that, and then there's also they're less consistent in their dimension, which when you're talking about a tool that sits onto the spoke like this and deflects it, it changes the thickness of it, so it changes its starting point, so it's going to change the amount of deflection.
Yeah, you're right.
So
you can find it's fatter in the middle, can't you, and tapers towards the edge.
We're even seeing some of this. So what we're doing is trying to measure in consistent spots, so we're marking the spokes, so we're always measuring in the same spots, but then we'll measure it in a different spot and see the consistency of that. So we're going to create charts for those, and we're going to, and each one, sometimes they don't 100% agree, so we're going to basically split the difference and create a specific chart for that's going to be generally, it's not going to be spot on, but like in my my talk earlier, we talked about how tension meters are really accurate for in terms of like in comparison to a torque wrench. A torque wrench, you're dealing with a lot more other issues than just measuring tension. On a tension meter, we're measuring deflection, which we can then calculate a tension reading. With a torque wrench, you're measuring torque, or you're applying a certain amount of torque, and you're hoping that gives you a certain amount of tension on that bolt.
Yeah, you're trying to establish tension from the torque setting. That's the important thing to remember.
Between there, you have friction from under the bolt head. You have friction between the threads. You could have damaged threads. You could have corrosion. You could have
coefficient of friction, remember?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things getting in your way. Or with the tension meter, there's fewer things getting in your way of your goal. So you're going to be more accurate. So we're going to basically be making charts that are as accurate as possible for the dimensions of each brand and model of spoke.
Interesting. So we still think that charts, online charts by the sound, is going to be a big chart.
It's going to be a lot of charts.
It's still the way forwards.
It's going to be the way forwards on those ones. In the future, we would hope, we're maybe hoping, I don't think there's enough market out there for it, but like a fixture like yours.
Yeah.
So where each shop can take a spoke out, draw it up to a certain tension, apply your tension meter, see, before you put it onto that fixture, you have to look at what your number is, put it on, don't look at the number when you have it on there.
It's the only way I found of doing it, and it makes the wheel building process so long and complicated. Yeah. But at the moment, it's the only way I've got of being sure.
Yeah, and it gives you the confidence. So but not everybody has it's a large investment to get one of those. And there's plans online. I highly recommend having one of those around because you almost don't need a chart at that point. You just need you want an end goal of 100 kgf or 120 kgf. Yeah. You draw it up there. You put it on, you're like, okay, there's my goal. Yeah. Here I'm going to go. Well,
I'm so glad that you guys are working on it because I think we all need some help working through it. So
I'm curious to see how it goes because, like you also mentioned in one of your videos, there's less elasticity in the carbon fiber.
Oh, there's next to nothing. It's like 10.
Yeah. And so what that means is even while riding, if there's going to be a lot more detensioning, and so there's not this elasticity in it to take up some of these hits and these forces that you're experiencing. So things are going to be more abrupt.
Oh, you make such an interesting point because we're now seeing elasticity in the rims, which we never used to have.
Yeah.
We used to have fairly consistent rim compliance, and now some of these super lightweight 200 gram rims, they can be so compliant.
I'm curious to see what's happening if it happens on the mountain bike side, because then you're going to have these compliant rims and these spokes with not much elasticity in them, and they're going to be it's going to be this kind of like slap, this fatigue life, and it's, well, who's going to fail first? Is it going to be the spoke or is it going to be the rim? My bet's on the rim here. It's going to put a lot of hurt on the rim.
For that 6-hour deep dive, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your time, Truman. I really appreciate it.
Have a good one,
Cheers.
Paul.
So, what did we think of Ice Bike this year? It's always an interesting show. It's a mono distributor, so the selection of brands is quite small compared to what you get at other trade shows. But as a result, you get to speak to more of the brand representatives on sort of a deeper level, which I kind of enjoy. It's a good way of catching up with what's happening in the industry. This year, I got a chance to catch up with Dominic, who is the managing director. And recently he just did a podcast for Bikebiz. Now, Bikebiz is the industry trade magazine, I guess. It's where you go to look for jobs in the trade, stuff like that, I guess. Anyway, the podcast was really good. I'll put the link down below. And in that podcast, he discussed two important things. And we had a chance to speak to him about it at Ice Bike. The first one was like the massive overstock problem that he witnessed while out on a trip to Taiwan, and just seeing vast arrays of product, some of it branded, some of it unbranded, that was all a result of cancelled orders coming out of COVID. Those brands that put big orders in and then had to cancel them. There's still an awful lot of stuff just sat out there in factories. And I do wonder how much of this trend of Chinese factories going direct as a result of having all this stuff there that got cancelled. The other thing that Dominic was talking about in the Bikebiz podcast was what he thinks shops could be doing to improve the experience for riders, particularly relevant to retail, and how shops could be doing more to improve their retail experience. So a better selection of products, better thought through, more up to date, merchandised nicely with price tags. Bike shops are really bad at this, let's face it. They're normally run by mechanics who really don't like unpacking boxes, putting tags on things, putting them on shelves and stuff. We're just mechanics, most of us. Now, I think that there is nothing quite like a bike shop on the high street. There's nothing else like it. It is really unique in the fact that we have a workshop with grease and tools and mechanics in, and then we have a retail where we have, you know, expensive jerseys, and we want to go and try things on and make sure they fit. It's like a sport shop, isn't it? We want to try our shoes on, but also consult over things like pumps and tires. You know, so we still need to experience that and feel it and touch it. And then we have the community aspect, and there's nothing quite like a bike shop for being the hub of a community. It's so important, and sometimes that can just be riders just popping in to say hello and talk about, you know, the race that was on the telly that weekend, or somewhere that they've been or experienced. The part of being a cycle shop that I love, sometimes it's irritating when we're really busy, but most of the time we love being visited and talking bikes, because that's what we're doing it for. We're passionate about cycling and bikes, and we love to talk about it. And I think some bike shops now have taken one of those three things and have exaggerated it. So there are some bike shops that I know that are doing really, really well out of their coffee and cake, their cafe. You know, really big part of their community where cycling clubs go and they gather and they meet, and it's a big part. In fact, the profit margin on coffee and cakes far exceeds what they're doing on retail or workshop, and I love that. Brilliant. And then there's other shops which are definitely retail centric. They'll have lots and lots of bikes on display, they'll have like sale rails and have lots of clothing. And then there are shops like us which are nearly all workshop, and the smattering of retail is just a mess of stuff in the corner, or there's none at all. I mean, you guys come and visit us as a result of seeing us on YouTube, and I can just see the look of disappointment on your face as you're like, there's really not much to see here. There's a gym, which is our community thing rather than having a cafe, although we're building that as well. Is the gym is a big focus for us. That's what people come in to see us. They're here to train and to meet people, and we love that. And we hang around and we talk bikes, and it's just great. So our thing is very much community and workshop in a different way. Other shops might do community and retail. You get the idea. But the thing is, I think more and more shops are gravitating towards the workshop and the community aspect, and fewer are bothering with retail. There's a few things. One, it's generally low profit margin to even start with, and by the time you factor in having to price match online sellers, because we all know that everything is cheaper online. Everything on Sigma Sports or Fork Cycles, whatever it is at the time, is always on discount. We've trained ourselves to know that and expect everything to be on sale somewhere. And the other thing is that products only really sell when they're brand new and hyped, and it's the latest and greatest thing, that thing that you've been waiting for, or they're short supply, or they sell when they are old and now in the sale and at half price. Anything in between, that just it doesn't sell, which is why we're in this like death trap of embargoes, product releases, and nothing happens, and then all of a sudden it's all on sale, but in that time another brand has hyped up a new product. It's tiring, and that's as a result we just don't sell anything. And I was talking to Dom about this and giving him a recent example of electric pumps. Now, we've been sent electric pumps from Chinese brands for ages, and most of them we don't really talk about. They've been a bit naff, the battery dies after a while, and also they don't come with all the UKCA safety stamps, etc., so they don't go on our channel. But then the bigger brands started to investigate them, so we eventually started using ones from Topeak. They make a fantastic little device, little screen, enough battery life in there that you'll get 4 charges, came with all the battery safety marks, winner. But then we sold those. We brought 5 in or something, and they just went super quick. Thought, oh, brilliant, I'm going to order another 5. Took ages for them to arrive. In that time, 3 other brands like Silka have launched one, Madison had launched one, and they were all better. They were all higher capacity battery, a little bit smaller, a better screen, a better pump thing. I'm like, this is like, what do you do now? And that's true of almost every product. You could buy a range of pumps, good, better, best, road, gravel, mountain bike, and then guaranteed a few weeks later, you'd see a better one that has all been talked about on YouTube, and you'd want that in your shop instead. So the point where me and Dominic got to was, yes, we all both totally agree that bike shops could be better. We don't want to do a shit job, let's face it. Bike shops, we want like a lovely shop, you know, with all the latest kit in it and this lovely vibrant community that comes and admires all the stuff and, you know, buy stuff. That would be lovely. But the reality is that we just don't. And the bits that we really enjoy is the community and the workshop. And yeah, it's always nice to hear the tills ring with, you know, someone buying a pair of socks or whatever it is. We just don't have the time and the space. And I was thinking about our situation in the workshop, because you guys come to visit us, you bring us your bikes, and we don't just fix a bike then and then on the spot. You know, you need to get the bike in, evaluate it, quote it, get authorization for the parts that we want to fit and the work to be done. We then need to order those parts. They can take a few days to arrive, and then we'd fit them, and then you come and collect. So the bike could be in our possession for a week. And in that time, that's a project. That's someone has brought us. It's a project that's got a value attached to it, and we need space. You look around our shop, and any sort of wall space is normally tied up with a service project. And I wouldn't want to turn people away and have a booking system that was so tightly run that you couldn't just say, bring your bike in, get it in the queue, let's get your stuff sorted. We want to have the space to be able to invite those projects in, because I mean, ultimately they're probably higher value than buying a pump or a jersey or something. So everyone's a winner, I think, in that situation. But to have that sort of model, you need the space, and you don't need to give that space over to, you know, hanging trinkets on the wall, for want of a better word. So yeah, anyway, we left this conversation totally agreeing with what Dominic was saying. Yeah, it'd be great if we had these lovely shops, but the reality is, you know, that rent and rates are so high that every single square foot of your shop has to be seen as the most profitable square foot of shop that you can run. And for us right now, the most profitable part of that is in servicing and community centre stuff like our gym. And retail has never really washed its own face. It's never really earned its money as part of that. So, but then other shops are doing really well at it. Other shops will look at us and thinking, how the hell does Mapdec make money out of their workshop? You know, their workshop is just a little room out of the back, and all they do is assemble bikes. And other shops have this bustling cafe and a few things hanging on the wall. So a lot of it, I think, just depends on where you are. Anyway, it's a fascinating conversation. I hope you found this somewhat interesting. Get into the comments and like what it is that you like about a bike shop. Do you want it to have lots of the latest stuff in there? Do you buy from your bike shop, or do you just use them as a showroom to go and find what it is you're looking for at a cheaper price online? Or do you really engage with your bike shop as part of the community and go in there and talk and interact and really appreciate their presence on the high street? Or are you a grumpy home mechanic, you do everything yourself and you hate going into bike shops and you hate buying anything from a shop and you do everything online? Get it down in the comments. It's all good. Right, I hope you found this video somewhat interesting. See you soon.